When is it okay to cry? Are you a crier? Is your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband a crier? Well, we all know how a relationship is supposed to work. You open up yourself completely to the other person, right? You share all your feelings and emotions, and the two of you share a bond that is unbreakable, right? Well, maybe. Our relationship expert, April Braswell, here to help us know what vulnerabilities are okay in relationships. April, welcome back. Women say that they want men to be vulnerable and to share their hearts, but isn't there kind of a limit to that?
Yes, when you said like the house crier, I was thinking, oh my goodness, can you imagine that man at home? It would just be, women still want modern men to be protector, providers. They're not expecting men to be the exclusive provider anymore. However, we do still want men where they're going to be the strong one, sort of the majority of the case. So it's perfectly acceptable. We want him to show some emotion to an extent, but if he's the town weeper and if he's really a weepy guy all the time, I'm wondering, is his hormones out of balance and is this man clinically depressed?
Yeah, because you have these people who say, I've had girlfriends in confidence say to me, you know, he cries all the time and I don't know, I never saw my dad cry except when my grandmother died or something like that. And so most girls, I think, want that stronger, dependable, less emotional guy. But what about, because I think there are different kinds of crying, don't you? There's the kind of crying, my husband does this. You go to a movie and it's a very, you know, sweet or very patriotic point in a movie and my husband will tear up and I think that's awesome. But I don't want him crying over his problems like I think I'm entitled to. Right? Girls, we have a double standard here, don't we?
We do. We also, thank you, we can rely on hormones, which is, I was like, we're like, you know, we do have more estrogen, so we are actually generally more emotional and a little more demonstrative that way. So I remember it was Elizabeth Elliot used to joke about it for when she would be counseling Christian men about sort of getting them ready for, honey, what married life is really going to be like. She's going to cry, and men were not used to this, so we still want men to be stronger. They're getting verklempt. They're getting choked up at a wonderful emotional moment, a patriotic moment, something like that. My late husband was a Vietnam vet. When you thank a vet, whatever war they served in, I always see that look across their face. It's like 5 emotions just expressed, you know, across their face in a flash. And being a bit verklempt is usually one of them. That's great.
I teared up with you saying that. That's how close those things are to the surface for many of us.
And it should be. That's totally appropriate. At the same time, if they had burst into tears and bawled on me at any of the different ages, I would have been like, honey, you know, what's wrong? Because really for a man to have that kind of a real outburst of weeping is something which is really only appropriate in conjunction with an extremely strong emotion, something like the death.
Yeah.
A death, a major loss like that, maybe right while they're that early stage of going through a divorce, when it's the end of a marriage, that's a significant loss as well. But the other loss is women want a man to be there in general. If he's having... There are things now where people lose their jobs, or there are really tough situations going on at work, and when he comes home, he wants to be able to be a little more vulnerable and reveal that it's a bit much, even for those broad shoulders, to carry all this. He wants his wife to be supportive, and if he gets... It needs to be like this thing that crosses his face, not he bursts into tears and is like crying on your shoulder like you're my mother.
Yeah, that's awkward.
He's an adult. You're an adult, man. Be an adult.
So help men though, because men are the ones who we are so weird. I mean, like, can we just girl talk here?
I know.
Can I just
Women,
tell you,
guys,
we're so weird.
Yes.
We're so emotional and we're so hormonal, as you mentioned.
Right.
And you don't always want every guy that you're around to kind of know that this is your more hormonal time. But guys kind of don't know what to do. You know, I have people that I've worked with that'll be like, you know what, you're just emotional today. Nothing makes me angrier than when someone tells me I'm emotional. I'll let them know when I'm emotional. But give guys some tips for when is the emotion authentic and when are they just being chicks? And how do you respond to that?
It's a little bit challenging because sometimes women will also use tears to manipulate. And if you're actually in a relationship with a woman, you start to recognize over time, she gets a little emotional at times. It's not, you can kind of see when it's manipulation. Certainly early on when you're dating, good luck. But it's like really as it can be. Oh, honey, I want you to take me to this restaurant, this movie, buy me this jewelry. No. But in a relationship, then he starts to recognize when she's crying. Quite often what women need, men, is just for you to hold us. We do not expect you, we don't want you even to necessarily understand exactly what we're feeling, because you can't. It's a different emotion for you than it is for us. But even to just hold us in your arms and say, there, honey, I understand, without being this big emotive thing, I understand that's quite often what we're looking for.
And don't try to fix it.
Oh my goodness, no, it's, let her, I know, our communication is completely different. She wants to vent. Let her cry on your shoulder, pat her on the back, hug her, give her a kiss, pat her hair, let her vent.
But I think in them saying, "Oh, honey, you're just being emotional right now," that's them trying to fix it. So maybe if women can kind of know ahead of that he's trying to fix it, that's why he said that. He's not demeaning your tears. He's just saying maybe there's a reason for this, that he'd like to fix it. But guys need to be very cautious about their attempts to say, well, if you're sad because you miss your friend, then why don't you just call your friend? Like, that's not, it doesn't,
we're in the emotion. One of the things that's actually very important about emotions, one of my specialties is with grief and grief recovery. So I was like, my goodness, if I got trained in this life experience, I had to. It is a lot of emotions. What's important is to have the feeling. It isn't about fix the feeling. And quite often, especially for women, and even more so than men, it's if you try to fix our feeling, we feel you didn't hear us.
Yes.
We feel unheard, and we'll go look elsewhere. And so if we're saying, I feel sad, and your son was being supportive, oh, mommy, that's, there, I love you, whatever, darling thing it is that he said to you, he let you have the emotion. The minute that they start to give us a reason for the emotion, we feel like they're trying to fix us, as opposed to, I want you to be here for me. In a relationship, be there for each other, and ask her later, is there anything you want? Is there anything I can do that would be helpful? But don't ask right in the moment, because she's just not going to feel heard if you do that.
Exactly. How do you know when someone is just too emotional, that it is really emotional instability or manipulation, as you were talking about? It's time to end the relationship because it's really just too much. How do you know? What are the big warning signs on that?
It's something where it starts to be, typically it's incremental, and that's something where it's like a normal situation, things are going fine, Recognize also a couple of times a year, the holidays, it is just an amazingly emotional, stressful time. Everyone might be getting a little more whatever over the holidays. But if you see that, gosh, they're always still kind of getting weepy and stressed, and we talk about crying, for men, quite often, the emotional outlet is rage and anger. So it's the same thing, too, of where it's a release, but neither of these, if they're...
Isn't that true in both genders, though? Because I know sometimes when I really want to cry, I will get angry instead. I can absolutely turn tears to anger instead if I need to.
Women can. It's just men were generally raised a lot more conditioning to, if you're feeling this feeling, you express it as anger. Women, we get to as well. It's just, so it's look for these real extremes of emotions, because what you want in someone who's a partner, in a relationship, in a marriage, is you want someone who's have some personal mastery with their emotions, of where even if you are really upset, even if you are, I am seething with rage, is not an excuse for, I now, the claws and everything come out of where I take it out on my partner. If they are taking any emotion out on you excessively, this is not good for a relationship. It is time to leave.
So unless a guy is violent, of course, if they're doing the kind of
the obvious
testosterone rage thing that they do when they're trying to block the tears, is it okay at that point to then go, you know what, I know this is really hard on you, like you would if they were crying? Do women need to turn that around in their mind and go, this is kind of the same thing as him crying? Unless there's violence, that's a whole different thing.
Of course.
But do women kind of need to turn that around in their mind and go, okay, this is the same thing as if I were crying, and do they need to react that way?
Quite often, yet, it's yes, respond with compassion as much as possible. And so partially, when a man's really in that kind of, or a woman, when she's in that slightly more frenzied stage of, I'm angry, I'm seething, I'm this, if you're being, oh, I'm so heartfelt, honey, I'm so compassionate, it doesn't match them and meet them, and they're like, what are you, crazy? Don't you didn't you hear I'm angry? Be like, oh my gosh, yes, I would just be so angry to meet it somewhat.
More of a reflection.
And then, so it's hear what they're really saying. And reflect it at a diminished level, and let them vent it a bit to where whatever it is, you're reducing the pressure on, I keep thinking like the steam kettle. You're letting some of the steam out. So finally, once things are quieted down a bit, then you can ask, what was going on? Because that's really what you need to hear as a partner or a spouse at some point in the communication. Not a moment when she's crying and she's in your arms. Don't ask her then. And
it's really, ladies. I think what you're saying, what I'm really hearing from all this is it really comes down to just being authentic, communicating well. Even if you are angry, you can say, I'm being angry because I don't want to cry right now. And even if you give those words, then that person feels safe in the room with you. They know that you're not going to explode.
Right.
April Braswell, thank you so much for being on the show with us again. Tell us where they can find you.
My website, my main website is aprilbraswell.com. You can find me there online.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Up next, my guest, Georgiana Ayer, joins us to talk about crying at work. Is that okay? We're going to find out next on Smart Life in your calls and letters coming up soon. The number, of course, 888-650-8176. Or you can go to the Smart Life page at moneybizlife.com. Click on Ask Dr. Gina and send us your email. Back in a moment.